Hi, I'm Bill. I am the salty old Marine, and I'm starting a YouTube channel, blog thing, I guess. So, what's it about? Well, it is about veterans, specifically U.S. military veterans. And more specifically, it's about the Veterans Administration and how to access Veterans Administration healthcare, VHA, and benefits, the VBA. These are things I'm learning. I don't know everything about them, but I'm picking it up as I go along, and I wanted to share it because I have discovered that many veterans don't know a lot about this very opaque and confusing system. So that benefits that they are entitled to, they often don't get, and I don't think that's right. So I'm going to do what I can to try to level the playing field a little bit. So let's do some background. As I said, my name is Bill. I am a Marine Corps veteran. I served from 1979 to 1985. I received an honorable discharge, and I got out at the rank of sergeant. I served during peacetime, but I was a military policeman, and I dealt with a fair number of what you might call traumatic incidents during my time in. Things that have affected me all of my life. I'm currently 63 years old. I will be 64 in July. So it's fair to say that the things that I have suffered are lifelong. I am now getting both treatment through the VHA for PTSD as well as pursuing benefits from the VBA. But let me talk a little bit more about my history. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1979 directly out of high school. I went to boot camp that same month in July, and I graduated in October of 1979, platoon 2068 at MCRD in San Diego. From there I was sent to Camp Johnson, which is part of Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, for my initial MOS training. I should say I initially enlisted in the Marine Corps Reserve, the active reserve, for 6 years. And that meant I was supposed to go to boot camp, MOS school, and then back home to Denver, where I lived, for the remainder of my time in, to do 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks every summer as a reservist. It didn't work out that way. I made some other choices. So from Camp Lejeune, when I finished my MOS training, which was as a personal financial records clerk, 3421, I went back to Denver. I began training at Buckley Air National Guard Base, which was where my Marine Reserve unit was, which was MAX 23, Marine Air Control Squadron 23. And from there, I decided that I wanted to become an officer. So I applied for the platoon leaders class, and I was accepted, PLC, and I went to Quantico, Virginia in July of 1980 for the junior increment of PLC at Camp Upshur. I did graduate, so I've actually been through 2 sort of Marine Corps boot camps for enlisted and part of one for officers. And then I was sent back home to Denver to finish my 4-year degree, at which point I would have attended the senior increment of PLC and then been commissioned and gone on to the basic school in Quantico. But I didn't choose that path either. After I got back from the junior increment, I became restless and bored, and I also decided that I wanted to get married. I ended up not getting married, but that's another story. So I re-enlisted in January of 1981, and I was sent to Camp Pendleton in California, where I was given the MOS of 5800, which is basic military police. And I went through OJT for my 5811 MOS, military policeman. I was part of MP Company, Headquarters Battalion, 1st Marine Division. That no longer exists, but that used to be at Mainside. And we were what was considered field MPs rather than base MPs. We spent a lot of time in the field training with infantry units and artillery. So we spent time at 29 Palms in California. I went to Mountain Warfare Training Center at Pickle Meadow. I went to Operation Freedom Pennant in Perth, Western Australia, and a number of other things like that. So we were on the move a fair amount of time. And when we were in garrison, in between these deployments, I would be sent over to Marine Corps Base MPs, the Provost Marshal's office, and we would stand gates. So we stood out on the gates and we waved cars, you know, through the gates, and arrested DUIs and broke up bar fights and domestic disturbances and that sort of thing. Pulled over speeders, you know, the basic kind of military police stuff. I was sent to Okinawa, Japan in 1983. I was there for 1 year, and I was at Camp Butler, which is in the middle of the country, of the island, I should say, and I was attached to the Provost Marshal's office there. I was a corporal at that time, so I was assigned as a desk sergeant or a patrol supervisor. I also worked in admin for the commanding officer of the military police, typing up reports and things like that, because I was one of the few guys who knew how to type or would admit it. And so that's how I spent my time. And then I came home from Okinawa in 1984 to be discharged. My time was, my active duty time was up. And I was discharged in California in SEP's platoon at Camp Pendleton, and then I was sent home to Denver. A few months later, I was called back, and I was sent to Fort Hood, Texas, to be part of a player-patient unit. It was some sort of a test that the Army was doing of a new way of doing MASH-type hospitals. So we played, all of us who were called back, we were all in active reserve, but we were back on active duty for 30 days, and we pretended to be injured soldiers, and they moved us through the various stations in the MASH unit, and then recycled us back through again. And that was what we did. And at the end of that, I was given a meritorious mast and meritorious promotion to sergeant. And then I was sent home to Denver. My DD-214 says I got out as a corporal because I got that before I was called back. And my honorable discharge certificate that I can hang on my wall says I'm a sergeant. So you decide. I think of myself as a sergeant, but my DD-214 says I'm a corporal. Whatever. Anyway, after I got out, I went to work. I did a variety of different jobs. I worked for a newspaper. I worked for a police department as a dispatcher. I worked as a security guard at a variety of different places. And eventually I moved to Omaha, Nebraska. Didn't really care for that much. I was there for 2 years. I moved back to Denver. From there I moved to Wisconsin for 6 years, around Racine. And then I moved back to Denver. Then I got married. This would be my second marriage, and I moved to New Mexico in Albuquerque. Lived there for a couple of years, then moved to North Carolina. Lived there for a couple of years, and now I'm in southeast Michigan, where I have been since 2006. So almost 20 years. Probably the longest time I've been anywhere. I work in information technology. I am a Linux geek or guru or whatever you want to call it. I'm a systems administrator or an engineer, and I run a small team of Linux engineers for a mortgage company. All right, so anyway, A number of years ago, I received information from the VA about the water at Camp Lejeune. As it turns out, while I was there in 1979 for training, there were chemicals in the drinking water caused by a local dry cleaners that was dumping their chemicals out on the ground, I guess, and it was seeping into the water table and getting into the wells and therefore made it into the drinking water. And it had been doing that since 1958, so there was quite a bit of it in the ground and in the water, and people were suffering ill effects from the exposure. So as a result, the VA offered to allow me to register with VA Healthcare, which I eventually did in, I think, like 2010 or so. It afforded me nothing because I didn't have any of the 12 presumptive cancers or medical conditions that the VA allowed for people who were exposed to that water. But it let me register, so I have a VHIC, or a Veterans Health Identification Card, from the VA for that reason. Anyway, flash forward again, and Congress passed the PACT Act, P-A-C-T Act, and that was designed to increase benefits and outreach to those veterans who had been exposed to various chemicals. For example, the Blue Water Navy during Vietnam exposed to Agent Orange, and those troops on the ground, of course, that were exposed, and then troops in more recent times who were exposed to burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, and of course those did awful things to them physically. And it also included those of us who were at Camp Lejeune between 58 and I believe 85 or 84, who were exposed to the poisoned drinking water. So I received some emails from the VA encouraging me to come down to one of these PACT Act stand-downs or get-togethers. I wasn't even sure what the purpose of it was, but I finally decided to go. And I took a day off work because, are you listening, VA? All of these outreach things they do, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They don't do anything in the evenings. They don't do anything on weekends. And guys, some of us have jobs. Maybe you could do your outreach when we're more available, not have to lose a day of work. Just saying. Anyway, so I went to one of these PACT Act meetings, and turned out there was nothing much they could do for me. Their goal was to register me with VA Healthcare, and I already was, so whoops. But while I was there, they said, well, listen, you salty old Marine, why don't you write down everything that's wrong with you? I didn't question why. I probably should have. But I did as I said, and I wrote down everything that was physically wrong with me. You know, I've got a lot of things wrong with me. So I wrote them down, and then they put them in their computer, and they said, well, somebody from the VA will get in touch with you within 2 weeks. I went home, and nobody did. So a lot of time went by. And almost a year, I heard nothing. But then I got a letter in the mail asking me to attend what they call a compensation and pension exam, CNP exam, for my claimed tinnitus and my hearing loss. Those were some of the things I had written down, which struck me as odd, but and sort of out of the blue, right? But I logged into the VA portal, which I hadn't done in a very long time, and I discovered that I had in fact made a claim, or a number of claims, when I went to that PACT Act meeting. Unfortunately, all I did was make the claim. I didn't back it up with any statements or any evidence or any proof or any diagnosis or any nexus. We'll talk about all those things. But I hadn't done any of those. So they were going to close those after a year because there had been no action. And I called the VA and I talked to them, and they said, oh, we sent you a letter. You never responded. They did not. They did not send me a letter. I did not receive it. I do occasionally get letters from the VA, and when I do, I read them. I did not receive a letter from the VA. And so I said, can you send it again? No, they can't send it again. Can you tell me what was in it? No, they can't tell me what was in it. They sent it to me, they said, and I should check my mail. Well, guys, I checked checked my mail. I don't have it. Sorry. Okay. In any case, I had this tinnitus and this hearing loss thing to go to. So I went to it. That was another day off work, by the way. So I drove down and I went to an audiologist who was contracted by the VA. And they put me in a booth and they measured my hearing and they asked me questions about my tinnitus. Now, my tinnitus is in fact caused by the military. I know exactly when it happened. In 1979, when I was on the rifle range as a recruit, I put in my little foam earplugs, which we had back then, and one of them fell out while I was on the range and while I was shooting. And so I reached down in the dirt to pick it up. I was going to shove it back in my ear, and my drill instructor yelled at me and said, "Get your hand away from your face." Okay. So I put the earplug in my pocket, and I fired the rest of the day on the range with no earplug in this ear. And yeah, I've got some pretty serious tinnitus from that moment on. Now, I have it in both ears, if I think about it, but it's worse in my left ear. It really screams, and it's constant. It never stops. There are times I can ignore it, but it's always there. I told this to the examiner. As it turns out, tinnitus is a subjective thing. No one can prove or disprove that you have tinnitus or how you got it. So a lot depends upon what statements you make. I understand that fraud is a bad thing and that people get in trouble for it and some people go to prison for it. So I don't engage in fraud. I told the lady what happened. I explained it truthfully, and they wrote it down. That was my statement. They tested my hearing, and indeed I have hearing loss in both ears, but it's worse in my left ear, which kind of corresponds with my story. And so I ended up receiving a 10% disability service connection for tinnitus, and I received a service connection but a 0% disability for hearing loss in my left ear. So I have two service connections: tinnitus 10%, hearing loss 0%. This, by the way, is normal. I am told that if you have hearing loss, even in both ears, unless it's really significant, like bad, you're not going to get anything in terms of disability income. You'll get service connection and 0% at the most. So I'm fortunate, I guess, that I have service connection in my left ear. Why am I fortunate to have 0%? Because being service connected itself allows me to get VA health care for my left ear, meaning I can get a hearing aid from the VA for that, I guess. So that's something. I have health insurance through my employer, so it's really not a thing right now, but you know, good to know, I guess. Anyway, since that time, I have undertaken to learn everything I can about the VA healthcare system and benefits administration, and I have applied for benefits for PTSD, and I have been pursuing treatment for PTSD from the VHA. I get once a week, hour and a half therapy sessions via video link, and that's been helpful. And also, I have an appointment coming up in January, a month or so from now. Well, no, I take it back. This is January of 2025. So later on this month, I have an appointment with a psychiatrist to talk about medication for my nightmares that I have pretty much every night. Basically, nightmares about things that happened to me during my military service. So definitely, you know, military-related PTSD. I have been diagnosed by the VA with PTSD. So I've had my CNP exam for PTSD for my benefits claim, and I'm just currently waiting adjudication on that. So I hope that it will be service connected. I hope that there will be a benefits award. I don't know if there will be, and if so, how much. I know nothing right now. Oh, just in a holding pattern, which is pretty common. It's been 214 days, I believe, since I filed my PTSD claim. If it is awarded, if it's found to be service-connected and a benefit is awarded of any percentage other than zero, they would pay me all the way back to May of 2024, which is when I originally filed my claim. So I guess that's good. For those who don't know, VBA benefits are tax-free, and unless something changes in your condition, they are for the rest of your life. Of course, I'm going to be 64. I don't have a whole lot left at the end of that equation, but I kind of wish I had done this many, many years ago, but I didn't know anything about it. This is all new to me, and as I'm discovering from talking to other veterans, it's new to a lot of them, and a lot of them have, well, just absolutely no idea how to go about making claims or getting health care through the VA, or even what they can do. You know, the only things I knew about when I got out of the Marine Corps were a flag on your coffin, you know, a 21-gun salute, and a VA home loan, which, by the way, I have. But the VA provides a whole lot more, especially to those veterans who were injured in service, or as a result of their service, one of their conditions was made worse. So that's what I'm hoping to talk about on a regular basis on this channel. And I hope that you want to join me in this, and we'll learn together. I'll share what I already know. We'll see where it goes. So again, my name's Bill. I am a salty old Marine. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. As they say, like, share, and subscribe, I guess. And we'll see where all of this goes. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Semper Fi.